Morning. I'm Billy Webster, the chairman of the board, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you all very much for coming. Looking forward to a very spirited discussion debate here in just a few minutes. But first, I would invite you all to join us as we do the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, and it'll be led today by Commissioner Sharp. Again, thank you all for coming. We're honored today and privileged to have our folks from GDOT with us today to talk to us about what's going on in Putnam County as far as our road system goes. We have our 10th District Representative, Mr. Jamie Boswell, and the district, for lack of a better person in charge, Mr. Corbett Reynolds, who I've had the pleasure of meeting previously and got a really great briefing from him over in Tennell not too long ago. So they're going to bring to you hopefully a little bit of update on where we're at on our major projects that they're in charge of for Putnam County. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our GDOT people. Thank you very much for coming. Whoever has the speaking part, if you can, and do the microphone.
Okay. We got a presentation.
Yeah, it's
All right, Mr. Boswell, he'll be the speaker, and I'll be the man you shoot your arrows at.
Mr. Chairman, real quick if I could.
Well, then I'll turn and face you for a minute. I'm Jamie Boswell. I'm a resident from Greensboro, Georgia. I grew
Mr.
up
Boswell,
there.
Mr. Boswell, excuse me this minute.
Sorry, I just know that there's a lot of folks who have signed in to speak. If you would explain when they'll have their opportunity to speak, that way they understand, how the process will work.
Good point. Normally when we have, excuse me, just Mr. Boswell,
Go right
I'll explain
ahead.
the
Yes,
rule.
sir.
Normally when you sign in to speak, we let you speak ahead of the discussion about any of our agenda items. But I think today we would be better served if we allow GDOT to make their presentation, and then all of those that have signed in will be allowed to speak. And you'll be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. GDOT has consented that if you'd like to ask a question, if they can answer it succinctly and briefly, they will. If not, they probably will take notes and get back to you. But anybody that would like to after the presentation, I'll stop for just a couple of minutes after they finish. And if anybody hasn't signed up that wants to, we'll give you an opportunity to do that. And everybody that signs up, we'll stay here as long as y'all can stand it to have y'all allow y'all to speak to us. But it's for 3 minutes. Please adhere to that time limit if you would. So thank you, Mr. Boswell. You can proceed.
Again, I'm Jamie Boswell, grew up in Greensboro, Georgia, had a lot of competition sports-wise with Putnam County when I was growing up, and had a lot of friends here, and I was told my wife I was coming to speak down here, and as many friends as I had in Putnam, had a lot of friends in Putnam County. She says, well, when you get through, you probably have fewer. So anyway, I'm here and glad to be here. We appreciate it very much. I'll give you a little update about the process of the Georgia Department of Transportation. The board is a 14-member board, of which obviously I'm one. We have one per congressional district. So we have 14 congressional districts. There's one from each district. We are elected by the representatives and senators in our congressional district. There are, in my congressional district, which is the 10th, there are 31 members. There are, I think, 11 senators and 20 representatives, and we are elected by the majority of those representatives. Oddly enough, when we have the vote, I have to get 16 votes, and if only 17 people show up, I still have to get 16 votes. So the difficulty is getting those people to come to the meeting for the votes. We are elected for a 5-year term, and we are not salaried personnel. We get paid when we show up at a meeting. So as I told my wife, when I go to the meetings in Atlanta, the hotel's $175, and we get paid $173 for that meeting, so I only lose $2 when I go to Atlanta. But anyway, thank you again for having us. We named the commissioner. Our commissioner is Russell McMurray, and he is, in my opinion, the best in the United States. I have never known anyone that has the knowledge and the ability to communicate than Russell has. He has the ear of the United States. Secretary Chow, the Secretary of Transportation, is a very close friend of his and calls him frequently. One of the things that was very satisfying to me and the department was, if you remember the I-85 collapse and the bridge that burned there, well, that was devastating to Atlanta, the state of Georgia. It was costing us about $750,000 a day in economic benefits every day that bridge was shut down. We received a $10 million grant from the federal government to get started. It was projected that it would take 6 months to complete it. We authorized C.W. Matthews, the contractor, to come in and do it. And we authorized them that if they finished early, we would pay them $750,000 per day every day they finished prior to that time frame of 6 months times of 180 days, up to a total of about $7 million. That was the max. They finished it in 42 days. So it was incredible, the job that they did. And just a little side note of that, all of the restaurants in that area, the McDonald's, Chick-fil-A's, all those people, they came over and fed these people 24 hours a day to make sure they wouldn't quit, because they could keep working and wouldn't have to leave the job. It was incredible how it all took place. But anyway, that's a big plus, and Russell McMurray, our commissioner, was a big part of coordinating that, and he was working about 20 hours a day. We, as a board, we basically approve the projects that are presented to us if we think so, we think they're worthy, and we pretty much depend on the engineers in our department. We're not engineers. We depend on the engineers to present them, give us the information, and if they say this is a project worthy of our approval, then that's typically what we do. But again, that's how the board operates. The next project we've got is the widening of 44 from Harmony Road to Phoenix Road. That's 11 miles. Phoenix Road to I-20. Originally, that project was going to be, and I'm not sure if we deal with that later on or not, but it's a 4-lane project. Originally, it was thought to go from Putnam County all the way from 441 to I-20. 441, it was deemed that there was not enough traffic volume between Phoenix Road and 441 to warrant building that project. Not saying that that may not come back at another time and we may revisit it, but at this point, we decided the project from Phoenix Road to I-20 was the one that we needed to move forward with. And Corbett, my understanding is we're going to start on the north side of the lake and move forward. That's the first part of that project we're going to do. Is that correct?
Where we actually start, I don't really know where we would start, but we would utilities be the biggest part of it. But I would say the lake area, that is going to be some of the first utilities routes. That's when you'll see the most work
And that's because before construction starts, we got to buy right away.
We haven't even started buying right away. We don't have a design complete as of today. We are looking to have a PIOH, which is a public information, meeting. That'll be scheduled later in the year, probably, October to December timeframe, somewhere there.
I would imagine also it's going to be an extremely expensive project of moving, relocating the utilities up and down 44.
Yes, sir. If you look through there, one of the main things to move will be transmission lines. Those are the big concrete poles. They're all up and down that right of way, especially at the Little Lake area. So that's going to be a huge, huge issue. Of course, the construction of all the bridges as well. So having to maintain the bridges and maintain traffic on the bridges that are there now, of course, build, I can't remember we're building, which side the new bridges are going on, how the line's gonna work. But, some of the other first work you'll see is the in-water work, building that substructure.
That project, and you can see the number of $100 million, and it could exceed that.
Trying not.
So,
Yes.
but it is,
Right away, utilities, that includes everything, you see the 100 million, 74 million for construction, so that's price.
will there be medians?
There will be medians, we're looking at, raised medians, 7-inch tall medians in the, center of the road, it's 14 feet wide. There'll be, open access to pretty much all of your existing, side roads. And then there'll also be the look at where we need to add medians in between those side roads to access it. There will be some businesses that will be impacted by that. But we're doing our best to make the right decisions so that, we minimize impact.
And we're in the process now of trying to locate median cuts. That'll have to be done all along, especially up in the area where Home Depot is at the Greene County end of it. And you're certainly going to have a lot of that when you get to Harmony Road, between Harmony Road and the lake, because of all the businesses that are located there. There's going to be a lot of work. And
I think everybody will know the final product will give you a roadway that handles the traffic not only today, the main thing is it's 20 years from today. That's what we're really shooting for. So, there's an element of truck traffic, but the vehicular traffic, especially getting around that Phoenix Road area, and that's it. Anybody out knows that that's not the way we want to live our lives, the traffic jams unnecessarily. So, areas are only going to continue to grow, and what we're planning is going to force move to that road.
okay. All right, next. All right, this is from 441 from the Edenton to the Morgan County line, and that's a project, and I'm sure the right-of-way, we're in process of buying the right-of-way on that project now. I don't know how much has been done at this point, Corbett, do you?
60% right away acquisition.
Okay, and that project, yeah, we own the, Eden, yeah, Putnam County to Morgan County.
Yes. 60% has been acquired.
6% of that right-of-way has been acquired.
Yes.
The construction is proposed probably for around 2023 and 2024. That's part of 441, just a little information. There are several freight corridors in the state, designated freight corridors. 441 is one of them. What freight corridors are all of the interstates and other designated highways, state highway, federal highways throughout the state. 441 is one of them, and it's a vital, because we're talking about getting freight moved through the state. We're trying to keep whatever, if you're not going to Atlanta, we don't want you on 285, and this is kind of what this does. The 441, another thing is we are allowed in the state, each congressional district, of which we said there are 14 congressional districts. Every congressional district has to spend the same amount of money. We can't, that by law, all the money that comes in we have to spend the same in each congressional district. I think it's called the Balancing Act, and if there's 100 million spent at the highest, 85 million is spent in the lowest. But freight corridors, what that does, all the monies that are spent on freight corridors are not included in the Balancing Act. Because if we did that, then obviously all the federal highway work, the interstates, that would take up all the money, so you wouldn't be able to do anything else. But all the work we do on 441, for instance, on I-20, for instance, or anything in this area that's related to 441 or interstates is not included. So those are taken out, and the rest of it is balanced throughout the state in every congressional district. And that's very important because there's so much money spent on interchanges. A perfect example, there's an interchange in Athens, where I'm from. It's one interchange, it's about $52 million. So these projects are very expensive, and it does not dig into the pockets of the counties or the districts or the congressional districts because of those high expenditures for those singular projects. So that's very, very important for what we do is the balancing part of this that allows money to be spread equally throughout the state, not just in the metro Atlanta area. It's everywhere. Next slide. All right, this is from 441 Putnam County line to the Pierce Dairy Road. I'm not exactly sure where Pierce Dairy Road is. Is that up to 440 or to 20? Okay, all right. So that's, again, that's part of it. We hope to have the entire project. The only part that we haven't finished on 441, the 4-lane project from 16 all the way up to the North Carolina line, is the only part that's not completed is from Putnam County to Oconee County in Watkinsville. And once we get that done, that freight corridor will take you all the way from I-16 to the North Carolina line. It'll be 4-lane completely. But this is the only part that's not done, and I think it's probably 35 miles, I'm guessing. Is that right, Corbett, between 35 and 40 miles?
Roughly, yeah, gotta get all the way to the vision.
Right. That's another story. So it's kind of an in-house situation, but anyway, we're dealing with it best we can. I see the current let date on this project is 2021. Yeah, that's the funding. That's when it's funded. Yeah. So that will take place pretty quickly. We are operate on we don't operate on a calendar year. We operate on a fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts July 1. So we will be in 2020 starting July 1 of this year. So funding for that is basically a year and 3 months away. So it's very close to getting started. But that's a major portion of what we're doing statewide in this district, in this congressional district, 14th. You got anything to add to that?
No, I don't know if anybody did the PLA public meeting last week on the computer, but we'll be serving comments back.
Okay. It was last Tuesday, or? Okay. Anybody here attend that? Well, I think it was held in Morgan County, wasn't it? Because they were going to hold two. I know they're going to hold one for the Bishop project this week sometime or next week, one or the other. Okay, next is the bypass. I'll let you discuss some of that, Corbett.
This is just something to mention. You saw the work out there on bypass when we put down some chip seal and put down what's called micro seal. That was a pavement preservation project. The micro seal is just a wearing force. There's no pavement preservation to it. So usually what we have in a project
Okay.
We're planning on starting
Lid's the area engineer. It's
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
we had the pre-construction conference from it last week, and contractor planning on coming in.
who's your contract?
Did the discussion.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on that, Corbett, you need to discuss?
Other than it comes in at $3.2 billion and, worth investment, that's our major truck right now. Paul's talking about 441, the ports to, everything that's going on with the ports, digging, dredging, all that's taking place over the years, the truck traffic is going to increase. For Georgia to stay where we are, be as competitive as we are nationwide, let's get these grid corridors completed. Grid corridor being Governor's Road Improvement Program, was approved back in mid-'80s.
That's right, 1980 something.
So it was approved with no funding. You gotta understand that, no funding went along with it. So as, funding become available, continue moving forward, getting that work completed. This section of 441 will be huge, this area, especially as we didn't leave up the last one. So taking care of that is just important, that's what that is.
And speaking of funding, we get approximately $3.4 billion a year in funding. About $1.2 billion a year comes from the federal government, and the remainder comes from the state. And what we did 2 years ago to increase, we were operating on a funding situation that we've been operating since the 1990s. We were in a situation where we could only resurface roads every 50 years. And you have to have them done, but within about 15 to 20 years to where they are usable. So we went from a excise tax of 18 cents a gallon to 28 cents a gallon, 26 cents a gallon, and then on the heavier trucks, I think we went to 30 cents a gallon. So when that bill passed, House Bill 170 passed, it really opened up a different method of how we were able to do business. Previously, we have had to go to the federal government and go through their environmental agency, which is very difficult to do and very time consuming. One quick situation that happened to us, we were working on a project, we were using federal funds. It was about a $10 million project. They located the nesting, what they thought might be the nesting of an Indiana bat. They stopped the project. 7 years later, they found out it was not a nesting area for an Indiana bat, so they released us to move forward, and the project went to $24 million. So now what we do is, any way possible, we take state funds and use them for new projects. Anytime we do a new project, and if it's something we can afford with state funds, that's what we use it for, because we still have to go through environmental. But the environmental is on the state level, which we can deal with a lot easier than we can on the federal level. It still has to be approved. But all the new projects now, if we can, we're doing them with state funds. The rehab projects that we do, we use federal funds, because obviously the road's are already there, it's in place, so we don't have to deal with the environmental situation again. So that's very important, and it's something that has really made the state of Georgia, moved it up. You get on roads outside the state of Georgia, and you'll find out how good our roads are here. I mean, it is incredible how much we've improved them, and it's going to stay that way for a while. And we've got a new governor now. You know, Governor's Brian Kemp. He's from Athens, Georgia. He's from where I'm from. And these projects, we say we are the ones that make the final decision, and that is true. We make the final decision. But I can assure you the governor has a big say-so in which projects gets done and where they're placed on the priority list. So I think Brian's going to do a great job. Excuse me, Governor Kemp, not Brian. I've known him since he was a little boy, so it's easy for me to make that mistake. But I think we're in for a good situation as far as the state government is concerned. So with that, you have anything else to add on local projects or?
No, I was on, would like, kind of screenshot, your information, your contact information, also allow them to.
Yeah, I've got cards. If anybody wants a card, I've got 2 cards. I got a GDOT card and a How I Make a Living card. This is because I'm still in business. So I'll be glad to give you one or both or neither, depending on what you want. But we are elected to 5-year terms. I was elected in 2013. I was reelected in 2018, a year ago. So I've got 4 years to run, whether you like it or not. So. But anyway, it's a great board. We get along. I really think the interest of the board is what is in the best interest of the state of Georgia, and that's really great. But that's all my information. Again, I have cards, and if you have any questions, we're here. Hard questions he gets.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell.
Yes, sir.
A couple of housekeeping things before we go forward. One is I know you've got 2 more people here from GDOT. I'd like to introduce them. Mr. Barry Wood and Mr. Lynn Burgamy, who we've seen here before. So thank you all for coming too. Next thing, if y'all would like, we're going to now let the commissioners ask some questions, then we'll let the audience. If you all would like to come up here and sit in front of a microphone, because we'd like to get this on our tape. I understand, but if you would, we'd invite you to come up here so you can have a microphone. That way everybody can hear it, so can our tape recorder. And while they're doing that, before I let the commissioners ask questions or whatever, if anybody would like to sign up to speak, if you would do that now. In the minute the commissioners are finished with their questions, we will allow the audience to address all of us. And just as a housekeeping thing, your red light says that it's on, but you can't hear the speaker. So if you want to hear the speaker, you have to turn your mic off.
Okay.
Turn it back on.
And then turn it back on when you speak.
So let me get this right. For a DOT man, this is kind of hard. Red means go.
That's right.
And does it turn green to stop?
No,
Okay, thank goodness.
Okay, thank you all for your patience. At this time, I'm going to ask if any of the commissioners has any questions, comments, or clarifications they'd like to ask of our representatives.
I have one.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just go back to the dates. The start date for 44 was what, and the start date for 441 was what? Because I wanted to. It sounded like they were going to be kind of in conjunction together.
Okay, so
And that being said, I'm concerned about rerouting traffic, trying to utilize 441 for some of the 44 traffic. Just what's y'all's thoughts on that?
all right, from a traffic standpoint, we'll have measures in place for the contractor to maintain traffic throughout construction. So you've got 2 lanes out there, you're going to continue to have 2 lanes of traffic. Now, there may be a flagging operation from time to time to get traffic through, but especially in the lake area on 44, there would definitely be restrictions to when they can work. We recently tried to do some pavement preservation down there. I think it was last summer and maybe even the summer before, and it's rough. Okay, so the traffic will definitely be taken into consideration. As far as the work, 44 will probably, if everything stays on schedule, and we're trying hard for that, 44 construction wouldn't begin until at earliest 2024. Okay, so part of what's going on is we had 2 projects. We've talked about this before. We had 2 projects, and most of the Putnam County section that started from 441 was removed from construction at this time, just because there's not, traffic-wise, a need for that. So, but there's still about a 3-mile section that in Putnam County that will be constructed. Having to change all that up, and the procurement processes we have to go through, and some of the studies that had to be done just to make the determination of which project or where the projects would begin and end has taken a little bit of time and more time than we wanted to. But hopefully, from what we're looking at right now, from what they're telling us, project manager, we have several different types of project managers. Project manager and program delivery are telling us that we're looking to have a PIOH at the latter part of this year. So the Putnam County section.
That's Public Information Open House, right?
Correct, public information.
They use
open
nothing but
house.
acronyms at DOT. And
I'm
I have
sorry.
I have a dictionary this long trying to figure it out.
So the Putnam County section would, we're looking at a 2023 funding date. Now again, that starts in July, that's July 1, so that could be any time in 2023. And another thing to take in, and Mr. Boswell mentioned this, these projects have all been switched over to House Bill 170 money. In other words, they're all state funded. Once upon a time, and for the majority of the life that you've ever heard anything about these projects, they were federally funded projects. It has taken quite some time to go from moving that program around. Now, originally what happened, they just said, take all these projects and we're moving them over here to House Bill money. And the dates kind of held. Well, to be fiscally responsible and to get our program where it needs to be, we're going through and we are vetting that as of now. We're just about finished with that process. Paul Tanner's office has been working hard with each district to make sure projects were delivered where they were supposed to be delivered. I promise you that all three of these projects we discussed and has been discussed very closely with him. We feel very confident about these dates.
So, along with that, I guess some of this construction will be taking place at night, if we can do so, and all that to avoid any.
There will be some done at night, especially in the lake area. I would imagine there'd be the opportunity for night work. All of it can't be done at night. And understand that that the taxpayers pay dearly for night work. And sometimes it's worth the investment to do that because, you know, we want to be able to live our lives without being behind between construction barrels all the time. But there's two things that goes along with that. You understand you're paying somebody to work at night and paying for that schedule. You're paying for that asphalt plant to run at night, that concrete plant to run at night, the quarries to run at night. So it's not just the people you see out there working, it's everything that goes along with that. That takes a lot of planning and a lot of effort. And that's one of the reasons for the increased cost.
Thank you.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say thanks, guys, for making yourself available and coming and walking us through this.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, you know, the one thing we do, the board does, we're certainly not engineers. But our job is if anybody calls from our district, we need to get them in touch with the people that know what they're doing and can answer their questions. So that's what I'm there for. So if you need anything or need to locate someone or find out where you need to be, you call me. I won't be the one answering the question probably, but I'll get you the person that can.
Mr. Chairman, first, I'd like to start off by saying thank you to this incredible audience. A lot of folks have come out to understand and to have a say, and I certainly look forward to what they're going to have to say here shortly. Also, a big thank you to DOT. I know we've worked with them before. We'll continue to work with them. And it's so important that we have public information meetings, and those are being scheduled and going to happen. And so you'll have other opportunities other than today. There are three things out in the 3rd District that I want, well, one of them's not really in the 3rd District, but projects that maybe are not up there, but that we would like to see at least get on the roadmap. You got to get things, start looking at things before you can ever solve a problem. And number one, and probably the most dangerous thing in Putnam County right now, is where the hospital come out, where you have the yield. And I know we've had some talk about that, and I'm sure there may be some folks here that want to talk about it. But it's a very, very dangerous situation. And I know that there have been some preliminary drawings, and maybe we'll address that in a minute. The second thing is Old Phoenix Road at Highway 44 and turning right. Our traffic has increased so much out in that area that in the mornings we may be backed up close to 1.5 miles back to the fire station where they can't turn right. We have 2 lanes, so if we could widen that, and I believe our engineer has made a suggestion and sent that in, and I'm sure someone here is going to talk about that more. And very minor, and it's not minor to the people that are running the boats over in the ditch, but Highway 16 and Ward's Chapel. Ward's Chapel, it's a very narrow turn in. You can't turn into the road from 16 with a boat if somebody's sitting there. There's a big ditch, and you can, if you go out, you can see where they plowed down the hillside. And those are three areas that concern the people that are calling me and talking with me. And we just certainly appreciate you taking a look at that, and let's get them on the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for coming out. I know there's been a lot of frustration over the years of moving dates of project delivery, so we're glad to hear from you directly and that you're confident in the dates that you're giving us, at least as of now. Again, I'd like to echo Commissioner Sharp's comments, thanking the crowd for coming and thanking y'all again for coming. One of the smaller projects in District 4 that perhaps has been talked about is on 212. I see that y'all have done some maintenance on 212. One of our interests is the intersection of 212 and Twin Bridges, how the shoulder is on both sides is almost a drop-off. So you have horse trailers and cattle trailers that have fallen off that bank in their turning because of the lack of turning radius. So I'd like to, I know that's on our T-Splice project, I believe, Larry. So I'd like for y'all to add that to y'all's list as well, and look forward to the comments of the public as well.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just got a couple of things. As y'all probably know, or maybe you don't know, that the speed limit has been increased on 441 from Putnam County going south to Milledgeville. I'd like to thank the GDOT folks for taking that under advisement, doing the research and analysis, and allowing us to increase that speed limit, because I do think it is warranted in that particular case, so thank you for that. The only other question I have is on Highway 129 from the city limits going towards Gray. Is there anything being considered for at least making some passing lanes or 3-laning that? Because there is a fair amount of truck traffic that also uses 129 from Gray up this way. If y'all, and I don't know, if you don't have anything on that, that's okay, just kind of put.
I concur, because I've been on that road a few times, and there does need to be passing lanes. And I don't know if any of you used the bypass as you get going towards Macon or not. Have you tried that? Well, I was on the phone with the commissioner and looked in my rearview mirror, and the policeman was behind me with the blue lights on because I'd made a illegal turn. So, but anyway, that is a big improvement in my opinion. But the Road 44 definitely, I can see the need for a couple of passing lanes at least.
Go ahead, sir.
One question to that too. How has the roundabout, I know there was multiple accidents at that intersection, deadly accidents.
Yes.
At the 129 and the bypass. How is the roundabout taking effect on that? And or any response?
Is it completed, Corbett? I haven't been on it. Last time I was on it, it was still under
on Gray
construction.
Highway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's out of my district. That's in District 3.
Yeah.
That's Michael Presley's district. I don't have any statistics. I will tell you that just the news not being any news is good news.
Yeah.
Okay, so roundabouts are they don't stop accidents. They just keep accidents from being as deadly as they could be, either at a 4-way stop or at a signalized intersection. It takes away that right angle accident. So you can still have people looking down at their phones, playing with their radio or whatever, and you're still going to get accidents. But those accidents, because of the speed and the angles that they approach each other, are drastically reduced.
Plus, you never stop. The traffic at least keeps moving, but but he's right that the severity of the accidents are much less.
Okay. Following up on Commissioner Addison's issue about 212, it looks like that is proposed to be repaved, and I thought that was also already should have happened. Do you have an update on that?
Talking about 212.
212.
I don't have my resurfacing list, but I will get you
Okay. Okay.
the latest on 212.
Mr. Chairman, I have one last thing, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
And I apologize, I'm getting old and I forget, but, this is very important too, and I know it's underway, the Scott Road extension at State Road 44. Recently, within the last 30 days, we had a very serious accident out there where somebody got T-boned. You can't see coming out, and I can't emphasize enough we need to move forward with that project. I know the funds are there, and it's a matter of letting the public know what's going on. And I look forward to having those public information meetings, the town hall meetings. Thank you for letting me come back.
Thank y'all very much. I think it's time now to let the people that were nice enough to come out and participate in this have their voices heard. So the first person that was signed up was Miss Beth Colley. And by the way, if I mispronounce somebody's name, you'll just have to forgive me.
It's Beth Coley.
Thank you.
But you were close. So I don't know if this has been moved from GDOT to the county, but the traffic light on Scott Road and 44, is that going to happen this year? Somebody, anybody?
Anybody want to take that one? Let me introduce Mr. Larry Kaiser, who works for Putnam County as a contractor.
Thank you. There's a long history to that location. Fortunately, the T-SPOS program, the commissioners passed the T-SPOS program about a year ago, I guess, a year and a half ago. And they set aside funding for a signal at that location. But more importantly, the reason that signal will very likely go up now is because that project also includes the extension of Scott Road over to Riverside. So we're going to have more traffic coming out to that intersection where it will justify a signal. So the schedule for that is that the county will have a public information meeting, at least 2 this year, showing the plans for extension of Scott Road through that open field over to Riverside. It will show an upgrade to the traffic signal, and we'll have a public meeting sometime in April or May, and then another one sometime November, December timeframe. Construction will begin sometime very early 2020.
Okay, I know we've been working on trying to get a traffic light there for a number of years.
Well, and I think in the state, and Corbett will know this as well, and working with the county on this, you have to meet certain warrants. I understand how dangerous it is. I've been out there many, many times myself. But there are certain criteria that you must satisfy before you put a signal up on a state highway. And it doesn't quite meet all the criteria. But when you bring more cars in from that subdivision, the houses on the other side of Riverside, on the, the east side of 44, you bring them out to an intersection, then that's going to warrant a signal at that location, which is why we are extending Scott Road as we are.
Yeah, I would have thought the building of the Lakeside Senior Center
will help.
apartments,
Yes.
plus a new drive-through chicken place right on that corner
Right.
is going to significantly
It will.
increase what's already a very dangerous corner.
It will. It surely will.
So you're saying we're still going to be another year at least?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we have in our contract with our design firm, we ask them to look at the warrants before the extension of Scott Road occurs, construction,
Right.
to see if there is a possibility of meeting the state warrants. I still think it's not going to, but we're going to go ahead and do it anyway and try to get a signal at that location before Scott Road is extended.
I agree. I think the light and extending the road could be 2 different projects, because you'll hear from folks that live in that subdivision, and there are concerns about extending the road. Whereas regardless of whether you extend the road or not, we really need a light there.
One of the things we did in 2012, I think, 2013, we used some state funding I forget the exact name of that, Corbett, it was the safety enhancement funding.
I think you used
The
some quick response.
Quick response funding. And so we put, the county spent some design monies and also put some construction monies into their funding and put that left turn lane in on 44 onto Scott. That decreased traffic access by about 50%. So that had a great benefit, but it didn't really help at all.
Right.
Cars exiting Scott Road, and we know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you.
Our next person to speak is Miss Cindy Estel.
Hi, and you got the name right.
Thank you.
I live in Thunder Valley, which I don't know how many of you know where that is, but we have 4 sections of it, actually. One that is on the Sebastian Cove side, down Elman, and the main 3 entrances, which are across from all the new construction that's going on with the senior housing and the chicken restaurant. We have Scott Road, very near us, which is going to have the traffic light, and as I understand it, is going to be cutting through into our neighborhood and attaching to Riverside, which will force more traffic, including trucks that'll be coming to the Dollar General down that road and through our subdivision, right in the middle of our subdivision. As I understand it, because of the traffic light, when you start running the medians down there, you can only have breaks so many feet apart. The main entrance, where we have a lot of the construction now, or a lot of the commercial businesses with Sweet Needs and Dollar General, will not be an anticipated break, as I understand it. So I'd like to clarify that. That being the case, we are going to be forcing more traffic down the first entrance past the bridge, which is Clack Circle, right around our street into Dollar General. Therefore, you're going to be having devastating effects on our subdivision from both angles because of both projects. And it's really forcing a lot of people into thinking about whether they need to move. And I hate to see that happen in our neighborhood. My sister just moved there right next door to me 4 years ago. We have about 30 people in our families together, love doing joint projects together and having a nice family event on the lake. But it's going to be very difficult if we're having to build some kind of barrier in our front yard to keep the traffic flow down. Can you tell me what kind of breaks and why it's necessary to have a median at all in that area?
I'll speak to 44 widening and not Scott Road extension. We met with some folks over in Greene County, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And I'll say here today what I said there at that time as well. We're really talking too soon about what it's going to look like, because I'm trying to describe to you something that may not be a real issue once you see the drawings. So again, those projects will be advertised in both the legal organ for Putnam County and Greene County, and your comments at that time will be very important. We need to hear from you and the businesses and elected officials as well of how that affects the community. And DOT takes those very seriously and tries to respond accordingly. Sometimes we can make changes, and sometimes we can't. So the medians are, just speaking of medians and not generally for the area, just the medians themselves are vital to safety. That's the most important thing. That's the reason they're there. They are traffic separators. Otherwise, you have a center turn lane, which, if not understanding what a center turn lane is, chicken lane. We call them chicken lanes because traffic opposes one another. Those are used and are not nearly as safe because you have more issues and more opportunity for head-on collisions. You have more decision points. You allow then, at that time, for everybody who has a license to make the decision of where they want to turn at any given time. And we know that we're not all the best drivers. So you have more accidents. So the main reason for the medians is to funnel traffic to places where we can have you turn safely and cut down on the decisions you have to make at that turn.
Well, I would like to encourage you, as you're thinking through that, if you could be sure that you try to have those entrances where there is access to a commercial area, rather than funneling it through the neighborhoods, it would be greatly appreciated by us as well as the businesses, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Dom Sarah.
Yeah, my comments have already been covered.
Thank you, sir. Next would be Miss Renee Bergdorf. Did I mess that one up too
No,
bad?
you did great. Thank you. And I'm here on behalf of Thunder Valley Homeowners Association as the president of the neighborhood association. So Cindy and I work closely together as board members. And so she covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but one of the things that I would like to maybe have a little bit more clarification, are you saying that in order for us to have a red light at Scott Road, that there has to be an extension to Riverside Drive?
With the senior center. Sorry. With the senior center being installed and the wingbacks being developed at the corner, I think it will increase the possibility of a traffic signal, but I do not think that it will still meet the 10 criteria that the state requires for signal installation on a state highway. So the best way, the way that we will guarantee a signal, is the extension of that road.
Okay. And so on behalf of the neighbors that live on that road, Riverside Drive, I'd like to say that their concerns are valid, that the traffic would be commercial traffic coming straight into their front yard, as well as that property being zoned for commercial. So therefore, potentially, in the next several years, there could be businesses along that road, that extension road, that would be right in our neighborhood. So that's definitely a concern for us in Thunder Valley.
We will have, as I mentioned, we will have, as part of the design of Scott Road extension, we are looking at traffic patterns nearby associated with that Scott Road extension, where traffic will go, where it'll exit, where it'll enter on the side roads, Thunder Valley, Clack Circle, and I forget what the other one is along 44. So we will present our findings at our first public information meeting in April and May, someplace in that part of the county, place to be determined. And then we will show the conceptual plans, we'll show the traffic study, we'll show all of that, and receive public input. And then we'll go back, relook at the plans, make modifications as necessary, and have a second public meeting sometime in the fall. And so you'll have ample amount of opportunity to provide public comment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you. Next would be Miss Elaine Jaworski.
I'm one of the I'm here to support my neighbors about Scott Road. Scott Road and 44 is a fatality waiting to happen. And it's very difficult for the people in this community to wait for the bureaucracy to move through the steps to get us a light there. Every day, the traffic's increasing on 44, plus the traffic's increasing on Scott Road. It's very frustrating when you sit in a line for 10 or 15 minutes trying to get out. People are frustrated, and they're taking chances that they ordinarily wouldn't do to get out of that road. And that's why those accidents are happening. And we ask again that you move forward quickly and not drag this out for 5 years. And a traffic circle isn't the answer. A red light's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next would be Mr. Gless Hawkins.
Greg. It's Greg Hawkins.
Says GLESS.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks for DOT coming down. I got 3 or 4 things to say, and it's probably going to take longer than 3 minutes, but I won't do it. We don't have the plans for 44 from the lake to Eatonton. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. When do you think we'll have the plans?
That's a good question.
I know
think
that.
I think I'll have something that we can show to the public generally in later part of this year, October to December.
Since Savannah plant has changed. All the traffic's changed on 44 with the trucks. It's tenfold. Why aren't we taking a look at dropping the speed limit on 44 to 35 miles an hour and having a bypass to have the trucks leave? I can sit at the restaurant at night watching trucks go by at 65 miles an hour. We do not have enough deputies to stop them for the speed, and it's getting worse. That is our problem. State's problem, county's problem. It's something we need to take a hard look, because something's going to happen. And we need to deal with it. You guys have the ability to deal with it. But you're going to see something happen bad on 44. It's taken Reynolds 30 years to sell 4,000 properties. They're not going to sell another 30 years to sell another 3,000 properties. We're not going to go from 15,000 to 50,000. And there's not a person here that wanted to live in Atlanta, Athens, or Milledgeville and have a 4-lane highway go through the main part of town. I think you need to take a look at it a lot differently. You're talking about the main part of Lake Oconee. Or should we make Lake Oconee City be something different than Greene County or Putnam County? I don't think you guys are looking at it right. The traffic on I-20 is not the same on 44 from Greensboro to Putnam. There is more local traffic from Putnam County, from Publix to Harmony than there is cross traffic except for the trucks. And I think it's something you guys need to take a look at. I go on from Publix to Harmony probably 10 times a day. You guys aren't taking that in consideration on the I-20 traffic. How long did it take you guys to do the Oconee connector in Athens? How long were those businesses shut down? 1-lane traffic. It's something you guys need to take a hard look at, because it's going to affect a lot of people here, and people are not going to want to move to Lake Oconee because of the traffic problems. That's all I got to say.
Oconee Connector in Athens, it was finished on time. It was.
I didn't say it wasn't, Mr. Boswell. I didn't say it wasn't.
But if you're talking about
it took a long time.
Well, and when we bid it, we take into consideration what the bids are, but it was completed on time by, I think, George Flanagan's group.
How long did it take?
Probably 2.5, 3 years.
Okay. What would have happened to 44 with a 1-lane traffic for three years? There's not going to be a business going to make it. Publix won't make it.
Well, it wasn't a 1-lane traffic; it was 2-lane traffic. So that's what you mean.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean that's what it was before.
It's a lot different down here than it is up there when you had a lot more space. Rural traffic is a little bit different than when you only got 2-lane highways going across a bridge. I hope you guys take a hard look at it, because it's not going to change from 15,000. It's going to take 3 counties to get 50,000 people, and that's Morgan County, Putnam County, and Greene County. We're not going to be Athens in 15, 25 years.
Right.
Please take a hard look at it.
Sure.
Thank you for your time.
Yes,
and
sir.
I will follow up with every one of you guys, because I do have a concern about it.
Please do.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Greg.
The next speaker is, and you'll have to apologize here, I believe it is Grenar Ginger Rogers.
She didn't want to talk, she wanted me to talk.
Oh, okay.
She'll talk next time.
Thank you. Mr. Preston Snyder.
Gentlemen, thanks for the time and the forum. My name is Preston Snyder. I'm with Thomas Preston Real Estate, represent the ownership of 2 properties, 1124 Lake Oconee Parkway and 103 through 105 Clack Circle. These properties straddle the Clack Circle exit, second one, as you come off of, as you're coming south on 44 across the bridge. So we've got a national retailer in there. Primarily what we have is small businesses who fill these two small retail centers. They've been there a long time. Some of them are pretty well-known institutions in the area. We've obviously got concerns about how the traffic is going to be impacted during construction. One question that I'm not hearing entirely answered at this point is there going to be a break in the median at Clack Circle, which is our only way in and out at this point? And I'm sure that's a great concern to all of those tenants as well. Is there an answer to that question?
I'm sure there is. I just don't have the plans with me or what preliminary plans we would have at that time. Again, that's why I say the meeting that we're going to have later in the year is going to be critical for everybody to attend.
No argument there.
Sir?
No argument there.
Yeah. If I had the ability to have those plans with me, I promise you I would have had them where we could display and have a better conversation, because a lot of the concern is just the unknown. And I apologize for that, and I apologize for the time it's taken to get to that point, but we're getting there.
So a preliminary plan does not even exist?
No, there's a preliminary plan. I just can't, what I had before was two separate projects, and what I don't have is a document that brings a project that was two separate projects from 441 to, I don't exactly know where the Putnam County project ended, and then, of course, the Greene County project. What we have now is just a piece of the Putnam County project that has to be married to the Greene County project. So I don't have a consultant on staff yet being paid to fix all that, and so that we can take it to the public and say, this is what it's going to look like. Those plans, the information they have on them, have old property names on them. They have information that's just not correct, not something that Georgia DOT wants to put out there as something we're advertising to build at this time.
So a map does exist, it's just not something you're ready to show?
Yes.
So we're left.
And at the same time, the final decisions about accesses, where access breaks are, all of that, none of that is, we're not ready to say this is what we're going to build.
So some accesses that are currently existing and serving existing businesses and existing properties may in fact be eliminated? Is that?
No, I'm not saying anything's going to be eliminated. No, I'm not saying that at all.
Is it likely that they won't be?
We're not looking to eliminate anybody's access. Now, whether there's a median break that goes through there or not, at this time I can't tell you.
And that's obviously the question.
Okay, so at this point I just can't tell you. Think of all the businesses through there, and no disrespect, but I've also got 27 counties that I'm trying to keep up with. I don't have it. I just don't have it committed to memory, and I don't have anything that I want to carry.
I wouldn't expect that. I would expect there'd be a place we could go and look at it, though.
And
that it would exist,
and that is coming, and we plan on delivering that later this year. And once that's delivered, Lynn Burgamy's office is located in Milledgeville off Blandy Road, and those plans will be available at any time to be reviewed.
Nothing online?
Then. There may be something online at some point. We do that with a portion of 441 now. We can definitely explore that.
Okay. Just to stress, in the absence of an answer, one is left to draw the worst conclusion in terms of their planning. And that could have a tremendous impact on the operation of these properties, the value thereof, and also on the ability for these folks to make decisions about running their individual businesses. It's a grave concern for all of us. I'm disappointed to hear that there's not something that we can look at that could at least show the current iteration and what the thinking is in anticipation of those meetings later in the year.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if he gave you the wrong information now, it would be worse than giving you what he's got and then changing it. So I think what he'd prefer to do is when those plans are all available that shows the entire project, that he feels confident that that's what our plan is, that you couldn't come, at least you could say, well, okay, at least I know this is correct.
Okay, we'll watch it with interest and we'll wait and wonder.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Miss Margie Kelly.
Hi. Thank you for being here. Most of my concerns have been covered, but I did want to mention that I do live near Scott Road, and when I was trying to get out the other day, not only was it cars, but there was lumber trucks in front of us. And so a lot of people are taking Scott Road as a shortcut or to avoid the light that is so as Mr. Sharp has said before, that people are avoiding that light because people are backed up there too. So now we're backed up on Scott because they're avoiding the light. So if you would please consider putting a light in there, I would surely appreciate it. Also, I would also ask you to please consider night construction for that area that 1.5 miles, because of the businesses and the traffic. You're sitting there 1.5 hours trying to get over the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. That's all the people that had signed up to speak. I'm going to give the commissioners one last chance here if they have any parting thoughts. Commissioners?
I have nothing.
Mr. Sharp?
I want to say thank you once again. There's somebody raising their hand.
Someone raised their hand.
One quick question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How would will there be meetings available for this meeting, minutes available for this meeting? And how will we find out when the public information meetings will be held?
It'd be in the paper.
Okay, so we're talking about 2 different public information meetings. I believe y'all are going to have one for your extension of Scott Road, correct? All right, I'll leave that for the county. Ours, again, for State Route 44, we're looking at later this year. Hopefully, we're trying to have that between October and December of this year.
So I understand that.
Okay?
How will we find out?
That'll be in your newspaper. It'll be in your newspaper, and we do have a pretty good communications person who has works our Facebook page, and usually for high-profile projects like this, he'll put out some information in Facebook, but that's not legally required. The legal advertisement is through your newspaper.
How often will it be in there, more than once?
I think it runs. I believe it's a one-time run, but I believe it runs for 2 printings, 2 weeks, if you will. But don't hold me to that. But I'm going off memory.
I think that's right.
And also, if you're in the 3rd district, I communicate. I have about 14 different people that spread the word. And I send messages out to my email people. So make sure you're on your community's email address, and you'll be sure to get what I send out. And I do that almost weekly.
Larry, do you have how you're going to have your announcements?
Yes. So for the Scott Road project, for both public meetings that we have this spring as well as in the fall, we will place signage on the road, 4x4 metal signs, stating where the meeting will take place, date and time, etc. We will also send out letters, invite letters to a specific area that is probably most affected by the project, and where else. We will also put it in the public information meeting. Will also be advertised in the local newspaper, Eatonton paper, and you most probably also publicize it here at the county courthouse. So there'll be multiple methods of getting the word out. Plus, Commissioner, as he mentioned, will get his notification out as well to those on his list.
And I think as best just a second, Mr. White. And as best we can, we'll make sure it goes on the Putnam County website as well. Mr. White? Go ahead. I'll allow you to speak.
My name is Lowell White, and I represent roughly 50 businesses in my shopping center that's going to be affected by the widening of the road. And a few years ago, when this project first came on our radar, it was verbalized by one of your co-workers at that early meeting that the main reason for doing this, and I almost quote, was to get big trucks through Lake Oconee. That was a statement made at that time. It's concerned me since then because even though you alluded to medians that would allow cars to turn to go to businesses, you didn't mention anything about traffic lights. Scott Road traffic light has come up since then, but no other traffic lights have been mentioned. If we did not have one in front of our shopping center, it would be disastrous. We will be about 250,000 square feet when we are completed in a couple of years. There's a shopping center planned across the road from us that will be 3 times as large as us. We already have 500 cars a day coming and going in our shopping center. Our area, sir, is a commercial district and a community. Getting big trucks through is important, but it's third. You know, you've got to approach this as benefiting the traffic increase tied to servicing our community and our commercial district first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. White. I have one. Go ahead, sir. We'll accept one more.
One quick question. Y'all had indicated that one of the reasons that you're doing this is to accommodate growth in the area. What are your growth projections for the area over, say, the next 10 to 20 years?
The question was, do we have any projections for the increase in growth in the county or in that particular area?
Yeah. Well,
or both?
In that area.
This is just my personal opinion. It seems to depend on when 44 gets widened as to what kind of growth takes place there. That I know certain businesses are waiting on the final approval of that particular route so they know where to build their buildings. As Mr. White pointed out, there's people on the sideline waiting to build as soon as they know where the new streets are going and how big and how much right-of-way is being taken. I don't know that we have any projections for population growth in that area. If anybody has it, chime in. Could you come on up to the microphone?
Mr. Chairman, we will have, as part of the our plan presentation in the fall and the spring, we will provide traffic projections based upon our traffic studies.
Okay, I mean, it's because, you know, the only reason that I was asking is that you were saying that one of the reasons that you're doing the project is to meet the growth needs. So it seems like if you're doing a project to meet the growth needs, you would know what you would have an expectation of what the growth's going to be.
I think part of the growth is not necessarily in that corridor. It is in the parts leading. In other words, this is still to move traffic between the two, shall we say, Eatonton and I-20.
Okay.
So it wouldn't necessarily be just growth in that particular area. It'd be growth in the surrounding area that might use that road.
Okay, but do you have any projections for that? I mean,
We do. I don't have them with me at this time. And again, all that information will be provided at the public meeting as well.
okay.
But the components of that is a truck volume.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually look at that as percentage of trucks versus the overall percentage. There'll be a look, let's say we're going to construction in 2024, so you'll have a 24 and a 2044 projection of traffic. And the traffic does not really just take into account your local traffic. Of course, it's about corridor traffic.
Okay, so you're talking mostly about through traffic then?
We're talking about both.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
And I'll say that it doesn't always have a tie into your local projection of growth. So you're talking two different things, really.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. We got one. I'll allow one more question from or one more statement from the audience.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm Susie Patterson from Sebastian Cove as well. And yes, sir, that corridor or that roundabout is complete in gray. And also, you notice when you come out, what you said about gray is absolutely correct. When you get to gray, I-20 the sign says this way to I-20. And so folks, when they get to 441, can choose 441 or they can choose 44. Most likely it's 44 straight through. That's truck traffic going straight through. Another item I wanted to mention is you mentioned that in the last notes, I believe, that you did your survey in January. January is not the opportune time, sir. I can tell you that from the 1st of April on is your opportune time to get your count. The third point that I want to make is when you're coming out of Scott Road, that turn lane, that works great. You turn right to go towards Eatonton. If you're headed south on 441 or 44 and you're turning right into Scott Road, that's great. When you have folks coming out of Scott Road, making the left to go toward I-20 North, you have, I know it's not quite a chicken lane. I don't know what you mean by that. You're going to have to explain that. But I can tell you that where the crosshairs go across, for folks wanting to make a left-hand turn, they pull in that illegal spot and they sit. So now you have a turn lane turning right into Scott Road. You have the straight through traffic. You have that person sitting in the crosshairs waiting to get over here to head north on 44, and then you've got traffic going through. There we have a problem. So we need the light. The last incident was Friday evening, March the 8th at 5:30 p.m. involving two vehicles. An ambulance was present, a fire truck. Traffic was stopped clear back beyond Reynolds for that incident. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, back to the commissioners. Commissioner Brown.
When you leave here today, when you come out on the main road and when you turn right, just so maybe some of you here, I think what the gentlemen are describing as a chicken lane is shortly after you turn right, you'll see where Imperial Mill Road crosses 441 out here, and where you've got 2 lanes going each way, and you've got a left turn lane, and then the opposing traffic has a left turn lane. You're basically, when you're turning, you're looking at each other, and so it's who moves first. So when you leave here, turn right, go the bypass, go your first crossing there. I think you're going to be looking at a chicken lane. But as far as the growth, I just wanted to state for the gentleman on the growth and how do we determine and what decisions are they making based on the future growth of this area. Several of us here remember when there was nothing at Oconee. I can remember years ago driving through there where there was absolutely nothing but water. And I remember when Reynolds started, remember when Harbor Club started, and I tell you, it hasn't been that many years ago. Things go fast. And also in Atlanta, a lot of us remember when the Olympics were in Atlanta and they were expanding the roads, all the widening and stuff, and I would drive through there and think, that's excessive. But when you go through Atlanta today, it ain't excessive. They need extra lanes and stuff today. And so what I'm saying is what several of you here for today is to bring up that there is a current problem. We're having accidents, current problems with the roads that we currently have. And we know it's not going to lessen. It's going to increase. So these guys are planning and doing the best they can, but with the one knowledge that we know that it is going to get worse if we don't address it. But with the way that things handle, they don't handle overnight. We would like to snap our fingers and things be solved. But I'm thankful for these guys that there is planning ahead. They are watching, they are checking. So, and that they come back and inform us. But bring your questions back. But I just wanted to tell you, as far as projection, all of us here know that it's going to increase. We don't know exactly how much, but it's coming. That's all I have.
Commissioner Sharp?
I have one last thing. This is kind of a commercial. Our census, our 2020 census is getting ready to come up. I need volunteers. I'd like to have some folks that said they'd like to be on that committee. Our new chairman is sitting out in the audience tonight or this afternoon, and just remember, we need to count everybody here. It makes a difference to all of us what the population of the county is. So remember, the census is coming up in 2020, and we need volunteers. I've got to have 4 out of the 3rd district, so be sure to see me. Thanks.
Commissioner Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you, DOT, you gentlemen, for coming as well. Just want to ease some concern about future meetings and how you find out. Our job as commissioners are to serve you and to communicate to you. So you shouldn't have to, you won't have to rely on a newspaper or perhaps an individual Facebook ad. If you contact your commissioner that you want to be notified, I assure you, when GDOT notifies us of their future meetings and when our engineer Larry notifies us of our Putnam County information hearings, that we will communicate with you through email or phone call. Be glad to do that. That's what we're here for. So just be sure you contact your commissioner. If your commissioner has an email list, be sure to get on it. I know Commissioner Sharp and I do, and we'll be glad to add you to that and be sure you're involved with all of our communications. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Just one final thing, one good note. If remember this number 511. You've all heard of 911. 511 is what we offer as DOT statewide on any interstate. If you have any automobile problem, whether it be an accident or a flat tire, or engine breakdown, or whatever, you dial 511, and if you're outside 285, CHAMP will come to your assistance. They patrol a 40-mile stretch. If you're inside 285, it's HERO, which is sponsored by State Farm. But if you're on any interstate in the state of Georgia and have a problem with your car, or if you have an accident, dial 511, and somebody will be there within about 15 minutes maximum.
Thank you. This about wraps it up. Let me just echo what the commissioners have said. I appreciate all of you coming out. The main aim of this meeting was to keep the information as we have as current as possible before you. I think we will probably do this again at some appropriate time when something more has taken place, and we'll make sure that the word gets out. Apparently we did a pretty decent job this time from the people that showed up. So thank you all very much for coming. I really do appreciate the GDOT people. They did this with a couple of the commissioners about a month ago, so they're kind of doing it again for everybody else. I sincerely appreciate you all coming. Believe it or not, they're here to help us, and they have a lot of things they have to consider, and you can tell they've been taking notes like you wouldn't believe. So they do listen. Now, they obviously can't accommodate every comment we heard, but the magic thing is to stay abreast. You'll have your input, and they'll do the best they can to accommodate your things. I think all of us up here understand about the Scott Road traffic light, and I can assure you that we're doing everything we can, and once we meet the state, that we will have that traffic light. So anyway, again, thank you all for coming. GDOT, thank you all. Larry, thank you, sir, for what you do for us. Commissioners, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And a second, and hearing none, I'll call for a vote. District 3.
Aye.
4. Aye. 1.
Aye.
2. Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Got some